Good evening and welcome to the May 18th Hillsborough County Environmental Protection Commission. At this time, I will invite Commissioner Cepeda to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time here. We thank you for your wisdom, knowledge, Lord, and guidance, Lord, for the EPC. Help them to give them more ways to protect our environment and bless them in all that they're doing. We thank you in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. All right, and at this time, we'll do a roll call vote to establish quorum.
Wostel,
Here.
Cameron Cepeda,
Here.
Cohen,
Here.
Hagan,
Here.
Kemp, Myers, Owen.
Here.
You have a quorum, sir.
And I do have a statement from Commissioner Kemp to read into the record. She is attending her daughter's graduation, so she's unable to be with us today. So congratulations to Commissioner Kemp's daughter. All right, are there any changes to the agenda?
Commissioner, there are, and there
Okay.
was an email also from Commissioner Myers, who had a conflict as well today. So
Okay, thank you.
the changes to the agenda, we are removing 7E from the consent agenda because we have good news. That case is settled. So it settled yesterday, so it is now off the docket. And we're going to defer 9A until the June meeting. And so those are the only two changes to the agenda.
All right. Can I have a move for approval?
Yeah, move changes.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Cohen and a second by Commissioner Cepeda. All right, so we already have our items removed from consent then, I'm assuming then, no other ones than that for item 4?
Correct.
Okay.
7A through D.
Point of order real quick. Don't we have to do the vote in that show? I think we missed a vote.
Oh yes,
yeah.
can I have a vote for, it's not a consent, for the changes? And then the voice for Commissioner Hagan.
Commissioner Hagan,
Yes.
motion carried 5-0.
All right, we'll move to item 5 for recognitions and proclamations.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm going to handle the 5A recognition from here in front of, and then I'll go down to the podium for recognition 5B. Could you pull the slide, please? The first slide for the recognitions. 5A. There we go. This is Madeline Mashricky, and Madeline is not going to be with us today. She's watching. We talked this morning, and I'll tell you before I get into talking about her long service with us, she felt like she would get emotional if she talked today, and she's actually in Gainesville with her son. And I will tell you, the world would be a better place if there were millions of Madeline Mashrickis. She gives the best hugs, and she can always tell when someone's feeling down. She always has a kind word. So I know she's watching. So we do want to honor her. We honor people who do 25 years of service or more. So let me just read some of these remarks into the record. Madeline Mashricky was a dedicated employee during her more than 25 years with EPC. Her service was distinguished by her unique ability to uplift both citizens and staff with her gentle, encouraging demeanor. She was born in Cairo, Egypt, and Madeline received her Bachelor of Science degree from Ain Shams University in 1978. She started her career as a chemist, devoting 15 years' work to working with water and wastewater rehabilitation programs with the USA aid projects. She married in 1981 and emigrated to the United States about 30 years ago, where she subsequently raised 2 hardworking children who are very successful professionals. Her son, Mina, has a dental practice in Tampa, and her daughter Miriam is a doctor in Gainesville. Madeline began working for the EPC's Air Division in 1998 as a member of the permitting section. Shortly after, she relocated to the Citizen Response section, where she investigated over 2,500 citizen complaints and was always available to respond to inquiries from citizens and staff. In addition, she provided administrative support, participated in various outreach initiatives, and performed noise monitoring activities, mostly late night and on weekends. Madeline always approached her duties with diligence and a matchless positive and caring attitude. She was adept at establishing excellent working relationships and was highly respected by her peers, other governmental agencies, and the public. Madeline has been an outstanding EPC ambassador and a beloved member of our EPC family. Her hard work and dedication to the citizens of Hillsborough County made her an asset to the agency, and she will be greatly missed. The picture you see in front of her was the picture that we gave to her while she was still at the agency. And this is the Lifetime Achievement Award, and this is what she wanted. It's a water lily. And this is what it said. It said, "Thank you for over 25 years of dedicated service to EPC and the citizens of Hillsborough County. You are loved, and we will miss you, your EPC family." And this was dated April 28, 2023. So with that, Madeline, I'm going to blow you a kiss, and we'll see you soon. I know you'll be back in Tampa in about 6 weeks, and hopefully we can do lunch. We love you. And with that, I'm going to move down to the podium because Mike Thompson's in person.
Would any of the commissioners like to say anything to Miss Ricky? No, it's okay.
Well, certainly congratulations, and thank you for your wonderful service over these years. That was really a great story of all the things that she accomplished over her over 25 years with the agency.
Yep, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you as well. That's awesome. So many years of service. Thank you for your service.
Yeah, one thing I noticed is there's a lot of people who've been there a long time. That says something about the EPC, that so many people stay when you see a lot of people leaving government positions to private. So it says something a lot about you all.
Thank you, Commissioner. EPC is special, and it is a family culture, and unfortunately, we have a lot more that are in drop, so we'll be having 25-plus services for many more board meetings to come. But it is such a wonderful place to work. I've been there 7 years, and it is family. So with that, I am going to ask, I'm going to read about Mike Thompson, then I'll ask, well, I can just ask him to come up right now. Come on up, Mike. You can stand up here with me. And Christine, you want to come up too? It's a family affair. Come on. Good to see you, sir. Love you.
Thank you, Janet.
Good to see you as well.
Good to see you, too.
So, for 25 years, Mike Thompson has faithfully served the citizens of Hillsborough County. During his time at the EPC, he oversaw numerous complex, high-profile projects and educated citizens and staff on the importance of wetlands and avoiding and reducing wetland impacts. And I'll let you know, since all of you have been on the board, you're voting on the projects, some of the bigger projects, the complex projects that he approved. Prior to transferring to Florida, Mike spent 12 years working in Chicago in the printing industry. Once in Tampa, he attended the University of South Florida, go Bulls, where he earned his Bachelor of Science in the Environmental Science and Policy program. Mike began working for EPC's Water Division in 1998, inspecting wastewater treatment plants, and soon moved to the Wetlands Division. Didn't like that septic? Wetlands are so much nicer. No offense, Sam. In 1999, inspecting construction sites for the compliance section. In addition to embarking on his career at EPC, Mike also started a family around the same time, marrying his wife, Christine, in '96. They have 3 lovely grown daughters residing in the Tampa Bay area, and 2 of them came to his retirement party. It was lovely. Mike has worked in almost every section of the Wetlands Division, including complaint investigations, mitigation compliance, phosphate, and permitting. His years of experience have made him a respected team member, and institutional knowledge is greatly valued. He has always approached his duties with professionalism, understanding, and patience. Mike has an innate and profound love for the environment, characterized by a sincere desire to help others, which I am sure he will continue to do in his retirement. Mike's esteemed rapport with his coworkers, applicants, and citizens is a testament to his dedication to public service and is to be commended. And at his retirement, there were several individuals from agencies and consultants that came to celebrate Mike. We're proud of the legacy that he's leaving behind, and he will always be remembered. And we wish him well and extend our heartfelt thanks and gratitude for a job well done. And before I move on to his Lifetime Achievement Award, he is kind of a jokester. He's a prankster. He's a big-time golfer. So if anybody wants to golf, this is the guy. He's amazing. But he always read poems at quarterly meetings. And he always had very profound philosophical things to say and always a sense of humor with wisdom. But when he left, he addressed a lot of our new employees, and he wrote this poem, which I would like to read. It's called Love Along the Way. It's your first day. Can I keep this pace? Love along the way. As time goes by, you survive and thrive. Love along the way. Some people lose their clarity. Not me. Love along the way. Over years, some leave and we do grieve. Love along the way. Now is my time to unhire and refire and love along the way. So Mike, we love you very much, and we know you're refiring, and we are going to miss you, but you do leave a legacy behind.
Thank you. Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome. And so we're going to bring this over and confer his Lifetime Achievement Award, and then I'm sure Mike will have some remarks to make. I don't know if you brought a poem. But
I do have a real short poem.
Awesome.
I do.
Well,
You didn't expect this,
yeah,
did
well,
you?
here, we'll get that, and we'll take a picture with them in just a minute.
Okay.
This Lifetime Achievement Award, obviously he picked an alligator, and so obviously he's in the wetlands a lot. He might have even taken that picture, I'm not sure.
Go Gators.
Go Gators, exactly. This is in recognition of 25 years of dedicated service to the citizens of Hillsborough County and a career that exemplified the meaning of love along the way.
Thank you.
Love and best wishes, your EPC family. This date, May 18th, 2023.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Janet, appreciate, move this up a little bit, so I appreciate very much the recognition and the opportunity over 25 years to do so many interesting things. In the Wetlands Division, we touch a lot of things in the county, and we see a lot of development. And 25 years ago when I started driving around the county and drive around the county now, we see a lot of the results of our reviews, a lot of wetlands that are still in place. So I'm very thankful for that. And most importantly, the people you meet along the way, the staff, tremendous staff, and it seems like hundreds have passed through in 25 years. But the citizens and the consultants and the relationships that we're able to build there, it's just been very rewarding, and everybody worked together. So my brief poem is very short, so you got to listen quickly. So I hope I remember it. Wetlands aren't always wet. It's due to the weather. Let's never forget we're in this together. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much. Would anybody, same offer, anybody like to say anything? Congratulations.
Yes.
We're going to send that poem along to Tampa Bay Water, definitely.
In it together.
Yes, and congratulations for your many years of hard work and dedication to helping the community here of Hillsborough County. And also, thank you for that love along the way. And I agree with you completely that love is the key. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm just sitting here and I think of, Janet, how hard it is to replace people like this, what they mean and the impact. Some of us attended a dinner where Tom Lee and Dick Greco got put lifetime achievement awards. And, folks like me that are coming up, we really look up to people like you. So what I would say is please hang around a little bit and stick around for some young people because they're going to need your advice.
Still got my phone for a couple months.
Well, very good. Thank you very much, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. We're going to take a quick picture. Coming up front.
Laughing, make you think you're young.
That's right. I meant just starting.
Excellent, thank you.
And has anybody else showed up for public comment? I know there was no one at the beginning.
No one signed up for public comment.
Okay, then we will move on to the approval of the consent agenda minus 7E. Do I have a motion to approve consent, noting the one removal?
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Owen, and I almost reversed your names, and a second by Commissioner Cohen. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Hagan,
Yes.
motion carried 5-0. I'm sorry, Commissioner Owen?
Sorry. I'm hitting it. It's not. There it went. Well, yes. Just in case.
I'm sorry, can we get the vote recorded one more
Sure.
time, please?
Sure.
There it went.
Commissioner Cepeda,
Commissioner
you're going to
Cepeda,
make
can
us
you
click it again.
Re-record your vote, please.
I thought it went there, okay.
Motion carried 5-0.
All right, thank you very much. We will move on to item 8.
Yes, Commissioners, 8A is a public hearing, so if any citizens do happen to walk in, they'll have another opportunity to comment on this. Introducing Andy Zadro with our legal department to present this rulemaking.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Andy Zadro. I'm senior attorney with the EPC Legal Department. Today we have a public hearing scheduled for agenda item 8A, which is the proposed adoption of amendments to the EPC Administrative Procedures Rule, Chapter 1-2. During this public hearing, I'll provide a brief presentation on the proposed amendments, and then we can open up for questions. I don't, like Mr. Marotti said, I don't think we have anybody signed up to speak, so I will proceed with the presentation. Can you hear me?
Before you proceed, I moved it down because I'm short, so
Oh,
there's a button
sorry.
and a little thing next to
Is
you
that-
if you prefer to move it up.
Is that better?
It may just be easier for you. There you go.
I don't know where that is.
Thank you.
Sorry. I'm tall. Okay, so briefly, I'd like to go over the history of Chapter 1-2 and the purpose of these amendments today. Section 5, Sub 2 of the EPC's Enabling Act, Chapter 84-446, Laws of Florida, provides the legislative authority for this agency to adopt rules such as Chapter 1-2. The purpose of Chapter 1-2 is really to implement Section 9 of our EPC Act, which involves administrative disputes. It also addresses some other administrative functions of the agency, such as rulemaking. It's really important to note that the rule hasn't been amended since 2012. It's been over 10 years since this rule has been amended last. It's in need of some cleanup, and that's the main purpose of these amendments today. The proposed amendments address feedback from residents, staff, and other parties involved in administrative hearings. The proposed rule mainly addresses these simple updates since it's been a long time. The other thing I need to briefly go over before I get into the rule language is the history of the public noticing for this hearing today. We published a draft rule on the EPC website on April 25th, so it's been available to the public since that time. The EPC staff conducted 2 workshops to discuss with the public and interested parties about any proposed language changes. One workshop was conducted during daytime on April 28th, regular hours, and then we typically will conduct a second. We did, in this case, conducted a second workshop at 5:30 on May 2nd. The required legal noticing for this rule was published in the Tampa Bay Times on May 3rd. That's within the required time for adopting a rule under the EPC's Enabling Act. I also wanted to mention briefly that the rule and this public hearing was discussed briefly at the Hillsborough County Bar Association Environmental Land Use Conference. So there's been a lot of discussion with attorneys in the region. We also did an extensive email blast out to interested attorneys and interested parties who we deal with traditionally in these proceedings. So the agenda item backup includes a summary and the draft rule in strike-through underlying format. The proposed changes in 1-2, again, are mainly non-substantive, such as electronic filing, language clarification. But there is one new substantive change in the draft rule in section 1-2.053. And I'm going to start with that first. Moving to section 1-2.053, this addresses the failure to respond to a request for additional information in permitting. We call that an RAI process. The rule is proposed to operate in the same manner as the state law, to be consistent with state law. And what it really is the EPC would have the ability to deny an application after a period of time has elapsed and an applicant has not responded to a request for additional information within a specified time. Again, it's really to conform to state law and be consistent with other agencies that do the same kind of permitting. There's a couple things I wanted to point out. It's important to note that the denial is without prejudice. What that means, though, is once an applicant gathers all their information together, they can resubmit at any time. If you get a denial, it doesn't mean you can't resubmit. It just means it's taken basically off the books. The denial also comes with what we call a notice of right. And what that means is if an applicant is intending to complete an application soon but doesn't have the information, they can actually request what we call a time extension on the denial. And that's not uncommon, especially in the state proceedings. It's actually very common to work out a time frame to get the additional information in. And that's really intended to protect applicants during the process if they're waiting for some kind of piece of information, and they can protect that time clock and protect their interest and keep that application open. So the next part of the presentation is really just the rule language. And again, the remaining changes are non-substantive. Briefly, the draft rule creates a uniform definition of the term permit. You'll see these different terms, authorization, permit. We wanted to have one uniform word for permit. The new rule, is intended to follow the modern process of paperless filing. And it requires litigation documents be filed through an electronic means to an email address that we have set up for these types of proceedings. The rule adopts the Florida Rules of Judicial Administration. That addresses some procedural rules that aren't currently in the rule, and they're not addressed by the Florida Rules of Civil Procedure, which is already actually incorporated into the rule. What that really means, it's often used for like what we call computation of time, figuring out how time frames, and again, it's all the administrative procedures stuff. So there's 2 other issues, though, in the rule that I wanted to point out. What the 2 other rule amendments are addressing things that are already in existence through case law, but they're not codified. They're not written explicitly into the rule. And we want to have that explicitly in the rule so it's clear for everybody. Everybody understands how the process is supposed to work. The first one is what we call a notice of change of agency action. And it basically codifies this process that once there's maybe a challenge started, that the agency can modify a permit or modify its decision during that process. And that often helps applicants out where there's been a third-party challenge. Somebody challenges one of our permits. We incorporate a new condition to settle the case. And that process, we refer to that as a notice change of agency action. Again, it's already done. It exists. It's just not explicitly written into the rule. The next one is the issue of where a permit has been issued, and then subsequently there's a modification of that permit. If there's a challenge of the modification at that time, you can't challenge the underlying original permit. The best way to explain this is just give an example. We issue dock permits all the time. So we issue a dock permit, it goes to the neighbors, it becomes what we call a final agency action. 2 years later, they actually want to include a boat lift. So we amend the permit to allow a boat lift to be constructed. If somebody challenges the permit at that time, they can only challenge the boat lift, not the underlying original permit. You would think that's not really a big issue, but that's actually something that has been litigated, and we always have to refer to case law. So the purpose of the rule is really, again, clarify for everybody in the process that you can only challenge the modification under those circumstances. And again, it's to clarify it, streamline the process, and avoid litigation about these issues and us having to explain case law. So in conclusion, the rule has not been amended since 2012, and it's in need of cleanup. The amendments will help streamline the administrative disputes, and they also clarify the legal process and help modernize the rule. That's the real goal here, is to modernize the rule. It's also going to make the rule more uniform with state agencies or other similar agencies. Again, there's no substantive changes in the rule, and other than the request for information that was previously mentioned. So at that point, staff has a recommendation that the commission adopt the proposed rule amendments to the EPC Administrative Procedures Rule, Chapter 1-2, that is included in the agenda packet, and authorize staff to correct any non-substantive typographical errors. And that concludes my presentation, so I am open for questions.
Any comments, questions? Commissioner Owen?
Sure, I'll just say this. I'm a big fan of streamlining. It's hard to believe because our rules of civil procedure and the law, we get new books every year and new changes. So I can't imagine, there may be more to do, I would assume.
It was due.
Yeah. So I will move to adopt these amendments.
Are we ready on this public hearing?
I was just going to say, in abundance of caution, just open it up for public comment on the off chance someone walked in, but I don't think
that's noted, but are there any citizens here to speak on the item? Going once? Okay, so, but we don't require a second public hearing or anything. We can move and act now?
It's a,
All right.
one event vote.
All right. So I have a motion by Commissioner Owen and a second by Commissioner Cohen. Please cast your votes.
Commissioner Hagan?
Yes.
Motion carried 5-0.
I've never noticed until now the tongue twister saying their names one after another is. All right, at this time, are we ready to move on to the irregular agenda for item 9A? Oh no, 9A was the removal, correct?
We deferred it till June.
So moving on to 9B then.
Yes, Commissioner. The next presentation, 9B, is an ozone presentation for Hillsborough County. We've had a couple days of air exceedances. We've sent out advisories to the commission. And so we're going to give a presentation that will be helpful to the commission and the public to understand ozone in our county. And that will be given by Jason Waters.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Hi, Ms. Waters.
Back up one. Jason Waters, EPC staff, here to talk to you this afternoon about ozone in Hillsborough County. First of all, I'd like to take a minute to talk about what ozone is. Ozone is a reactive gas made of 3 oxygen atoms. It occurs both naturally and man-made. A lot of people immediately think of stratospheric ozone, which is what's in the upper atmosphere. And we used to talk about a hole in the upper atmosphere and how that ozone was there, or good ozone to protect us. from the ultraviolet rays. However, that same chemical at the ground level is considered bad ozone because it has a harmful effect on human health, and it's also the main ingredient in smog. It's formed mainly from nitrogen oxides and volatile organic compounds that form in the presence of sunlight, and typically that happens on very hot, low humidity days when there's lots of traffic. There can be industrial and commercial impacts, but the main driver today is transportation or mobile sources. Weather phenomena also, very stagnant days, plays a role into ozone formation. Why do we regulate and monitor ozone? Ozone, causes coughing, scratchy throat, can make you difficult to breathe, causing damage to the lungs, leading to additional infections. Also, ozone damages plants, inhibits their ability to grow, and increases their plants of disease, which can lead to habitat change if plants go away. Ozone is one of the 6 national ambient air quality standards. And since that's kind of a big word, we like to call it the NAAQS for all of us that work in air quality. And there's a primary and a secondary standard. That primary standard is set to protect human health. The secondary is set to protect the environment. In the case of ozone, the primary and secondary standard is the same. It's averaged over 8 hours. It's 0.070 parts per million. The EPA reviews the NAAQS standards periodically to determine if they're still meeting the protection levels necessary. And they use data from the CDC, National Institute of Health. The last review occurred in 2020, and they determined the current standard of 0.070 over 8 hours is still sufficient for primary and secondary standards. So how do you monitor for this ozone in the air, you might ask? Well, Hillsborough County actually operates one of the largest monitoring networks in the state of Florida for a county. We're one of 2. It's either us or Broward. We kind of go back and forth depending on what's going on. And we have 4 ozone monitors in Hillsborough, and that's a lot. Many counties have 0. On the right, you see our E.G. Simmons Park monitoring station. It looks like a trailer, and that's what it is. But it's air conditioned. It needs to be air conditioned because the instruments are sensitive. That little box down on the right, if we remember the days of a desktop computer, we had a big box sitting on our desk, that's inside there, along with some calibration equipment, another computer called a data logger that puts that data back in real time to our office. These monitors have to be checked every several weeks. They automatically do checks on themselves every night. All these are requirements for quality assurance through our EPA contract. So we talk about ozone season. So nationwide, it's March through November. Really nationwide, a lot of people say June to August is their worst days. Florida is kind of year-round. We're looking at 2022 data here. You can see 70 is the standard. A couple days where we went over, but you can see it fluctuates. And how it goes up and down, typically ozone's high in the afternoon, and when the sun heats it up and cooks it up, and then it wanes throughout the night, around midnight, 2 o'clock. And for Florida, our driest time is our worst time, which is typically March through May. So if we take that 8-hour standard and we look at the number of days per year that were greater than the current health-based standard of 70 parts per billion, that is the same as 0.070 parts per million. But usually it's referred to, because this is easier than putting all those decimals in there. The number of days is on the left. As you can see, back in 2000, it would have been over 40 days. And there's a couple of notes on this graph. They said the NAAQS is lowered in 2008 and again in 2015. A lot of people say, oh, why did you lower the standards? Well, lower means made tougher in this case because the number is lower and you got to stay under that number. So it's kind of like lowering the speed limit. It's kind of tougher, right? And as you can see, the numbers have gone from 40-something to last year it was 2. So we do forecasts for ozone. And there is something called the Air Quality Index. And that, our data here in Hillsborough County drives that air quality index. Over on the right, just you can see in the colored, we have the 4 monitors there. And you can see how this is a single day. This is June 22nd last year. It was a particularly bad day. And you can see how the different monitors, where they were. And if you notice, the city monitor never got above the standard. So it doesn't mean that every monitor is above each day, but some of them may be. This, again, hourly data is sent out to the AirNow website. You can all go to airnow.gov and look at the data whenever you want. They do a forecast as well. Things we consider when forecasting is humidity, temperature, the time of day, and the current hourly values. And we're looking at a chart like that, and we get that data about every 15 minutes from the sites. And AirNow has its own predictive formula that it uses as well to forecast. So here's a snapshot of that website. Like I said, you can go there, you can put a zip code in, you can find out what it is for any locale in the United States if you want to. On the bottom left, it says EPA and partners, and on the bottom right, it says data courtesy of Hillsborough County, Tampa. That is us, the EPC, providing that data to the US EPA. And this day was a couple of weeks ago. This was May 8th. You can see I looked at about 11 a.m. that day. It was saying it was good, and the forecast was good for that day. So what do those colors mean? Well, green is good, and yellow is moderate. And both of those we consider to be acceptable because 100 is, the AQI is set as 100 as the passing score. Once we hit the orange, and if you look at the bar chart on the left, you see our green days is 260 something days a year out of 365, a little bit less than 100 moderate days. And there was that 2, you can barely see it inching up, the unhealthy for sensitive groups. And that typically means small children, elderly, or somebody that has asthma. We issue 2 types of statements when we believe we're going to be in that orange or higher level. One statement is precautionary. It believes we have a potential to end up orange, but we may not. We might stay high moderate for a long period of time. Matter of fact, we issued one of those last Friday prior to Mother's Day weekend. Cloud cover came in and kind of knocked most of it out. We did have a few hours of moderate up in the high portions over the weekend. The other advisory we issue is, the advisory we issue means we are pretty sure we're going to go over the standard. And we do this to give people a heads up so they can change their plans, limit their time outside, and their exposure. So how that happens, we email the media outlets. You can go to our EPC website, it's going to be there. You can sign up for our alerts on our website too, and it'll text you or email you however you wanted when you selected that. And we also put it out on social media. If you have a weather app on your phone, by the way, this AirNow data goes to the National Weather Service, and it gets pushed out through, it doesn't matter whether you have the iPhone weather app or the Samsung or the Weather Channel app, it's all gonna push from the National Weather Service to you, and you will get that alert. So here's the number of days that were unhealthy for sensitive groups. And this is since 2012, and you can see it was 12, and the last couple of years it's been 2. How can you protect yourself, and what can you do to help? Again, I already talked about limiting your time outside during the high ozone levels. Know what the AQI is in your area. Like I said, the different parts of the county is different. You can help by driving less, carpool, walk, bike, maintain your vehicle. That's a little bit less of an issue now. Our vehicles tend to last a lot longer. We've done a lot of jobs with stainless exhaust over the years. If you were here before 2000, we had to get our vehicles inspected annually to make sure it was tuned up and working right. And you should still continue to do that. And then lastly, use environmentally safe products. One thing I do want to take a minute to talk about. This comes up almost every year about this time of year, and so it's timely to talk about it. American Lung Association puts out a State of the Air report each year. And they kind of arbitrarily set the standard. They're using the same standard EPA does of 70. But EPA does it, it's based on the 98th percentile, which means there's a few days you could be over the standard for exceptional events, wildfires, et cetera. The way American Lung looks at it, there are no exceptional events, there are no days over. The US EPA says Hillsborough County, Florida is in attainment. Matter of fact, the state of Florida is in attainment not just for ozone, but for all national ambient air quality standards. That was a huge achievement as of about 3 years ago. But you can see that the ozone grade American lung assigns is a D. So let's look below at what that means. So there were 3 days that we were above that standard, but remember, we still are in attainment based on the health-based standard the EPA set. Los Angeles had 112 days, they get an F. So what does it take to get an F? If we get 4, we get an F. So it's basically 1 hit is a B, 2 is a C, 3 is a D, 4 is an F. So it's a tough grading scale because it puts you in the same class as LA, and we don't have the same smog level as LA. And this is an ozone presentation, but I am going to talk a little bit about particulate because that is an air quality index as well. With fine particulate, basically really fine dust, PM 2.5 we call it. We're in attainment for that. We get a grade of B. I always like to present this and say that's one single high reading, and it is New Year's Eve, and it's from fireworks. So it happens almost every year, and so we always are looking at this grading standard and figuring out why these things occur. So I added this slide to show here's an air pollution advisory. This is really small, but basically this is a formal advisory. This whole thing gets sent to NWS, and if you go on their website, you can see the entire verbiage of the language. We had a few citizens and people contact us regarding adding some language explaining what ozone was and maybe a link, and we've done that. And so what I want to do is just highlight the language we added. And so it basically gives us a short description that I gave earlier about what ozone is, who it affects, and if you want to find lots more information, you can go to the US EPA website, which is popular with pages and pages of information. And that is my presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
Commissioner Cohen, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, and thank you for a very, very interesting report. Just one question. The trajectory over the years of ozone is clearly downward. It seems as though our numbers have been relatively low. Over the past 20 years, though, the trend has clearly been downward. What is that attributable to? Because the population of the county is much higher now than it was when the ozone layer levels were higher.
You're absolutely right. That's an excellent observation. What's the population? Probably 50% higher over the past 20, 30 years. And there's a couple things. Cars are a lot cleaner, right? I mean, we've got multiple, they call it two-way catalysts in cars. They last much longer. So the mobile sources have gotten better. The fuels have gotten better, but also large electrical generators. If you remember back in the 90s, almost all of Tampa Bay's power came from coal. And today it comes mainly from natural gas. There is some coal left, but the remaining coal is scrubbed, meaning there's chemical scrubbers on it. And there's also nitrogen removal systems that keep the nitrogen oxides from getting into the air. So a lot of it's achievable to that. And basically, the less fuel you burn, the less NOx and CO you're going to emit. So not only have we designed cars better and engines better, but they get better fuel mileage. So the less fuel you burn, the less emissions you have.
So why does Los Angeles have 112 days above the level?
Well, they're also trapped by the mountains behind them, and so they get a worse inversion than we do. We get a little bit of overnight cleaning from the ocean because we have an overnight inversion where we have an onshore breeze and an offshore breeze. It helps some natural cleaning, whereas in LA, it kind of gets trapped down in a valley, so to speak. But also, they have a lot more cars too, and it's just going to be worse. And probably not as much rain. I haven't really looked at the rainfall in LA, but that hurts you a lot. When it rains, rain's a great cleaner. As soon as June, July, August come, we get those afternoon rains. It knocks the ozone right out.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, very good. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Jason. And I'd just like to let you know we added to to the advisory statement after both of your offices had called us, commissioners, language that explains to the public what ozone is. So when the advisory goes out, they kind of actually understand in a few sentences what it is and that it can be naturally occurring as well. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
The next one is 9C. It's our legislative update on environmental and administrative bills from Rick Marotti.
Good afternoon again, Commissioners. The legislative session, 60-day session, as you're familiar with, wrapped up on May 5th. If we could go to the next slide. Over about 1,800 bills were proposed. Most died, more than 1,000 died in committees. I'm going to touch on some of the environmental bills. And if we could go to the
I think they're trying to get set up to change it for you.
Thank you. There we go.
He's got it.
And we can go, and we can go to the next slide too. You know, there was a lot of preemptions early on in the session that we had a lot of concern about environmental preemptions and other topics that are not environmental. But as the environmental ones go, there wasn't too bad of a session for the EPC's, you know, parochial interest. And wonderful funding for environmental causes all around the state, water quality, local government cleanup contracting for us for our tanks program and our cleanup program. So there was really good funding for environmental causes. So that was good. One of the good messages we saw from the session. I'm going to touch on some of the bills that my co-counsel, Ms. Lee, touched on in April, and just kind of let you know where those landed. And as a point of personal privilege, just a heads up, Ms. Lee had her baby on Mother's Day, so I just wish her well. And I'll carry on and do her wrap up on this topic. The mangrove bill died in committee. It was an effort to have the DEP identify areas in the state that needed restoration, especially in areas of critical concern, work with local governments, but this one died in committee. Next slide. The Land and Water Management Bill, this was one of the toughest preemptions we saw, House Bill 1197. It was a pure preemption of county and municipalities from regulating all matter of water quality, water quantity, wetland regulation, wetland delineation, with minor exceptions if you had a delegation or if you were doing stormwater regulation. This did not get to any committee, and it obviously failed. Next slide. The Organic Materials Products Bill was another preemption. This was regarding the handling, processing, storage of organic materials on agricultural operations. So if an agricultural operation had their land deemed land classified as agricultural through the property appraiser's office, they would have received an extra protection of not having the local government's ability to regulate handling of landscaping and yard waste materials. This actually made it through the House in House Bill 1361, or made it to the House chamber, but never got voted at the House chamber. And then at the last minute, it was picked up and dropped in an omnibus agricultural bill, House Bill 1343, that actually got approved at the House chamber and then at the Senate chamber. But because the omnibus bill had a lot of other issues, such as migratory farm worker issues that the Senate and House couldn't reconcile, this language died on the last day. I expect to see this one come back next year. It just came so close to the finish line. We don't see it, even though it's a preemption, we don't see it as a major preemption of EPC functions. There are a few ag properties that we regulate yard waste on and will continue to, but this wouldn't have impacted our overall functions. Next slide, please. Biosolids bill, this one passed. This is a grants program where the DEP is empowered to work with local governments to find innovative ways to dispose of biosolids and convert wastewater to Class AA fertilizer. It does require matching funds of the city or county that want to take advantage of this bill. And that was Senate Bill 880 that passed. And then the last bill I'm going to discuss is the phosphogypsum bill. This one we didn't talk about last month, but it did pass the House Bill 1191, sponsored by Representative McClure here locally. And it directs the Florida Department of Transportation to conduct a study on or before April of 2024 to determine whether phosphogypsum can be used as road-based material, an aggregate to road material. And if you recall from previous discussions, phosphogypsum is that byproduct from the mining of the phosphate ore and converting it to fertilizer and other beneficial products. And typically it's stacked up in these gypsum stacks in Riverview and Polk County and other places in Florida. So the idea is can it be used for another purpose? The bill says that if the study shows it can be used in the state of Florida, and the EPA then opens it up for use, then it can be used in Florida. So there's no more legislative action that is necessary. Just need a favorable study from the FDOT and the EPA to approve it. But right now the EPA prohibits it. And I'll remind you that the county commission took a position about 2 years ago on a motion from Commissioner Hagan to oppose its use in county projects in Hillsborough County. I don't see a preemption in this bill as written, but at least on state roads, local governments can't regulate state roads anyway, but this would open up the door statewide to use that material. And with that, commissioners, there's more more bills in the agenda packet, but happy to take any questions on this and any other bills.
I don't see anybody in the hopper. Looks like we're good. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Commissioners. We'll move on to the Executive Director's Report. If James could pull up my slides, please. Thank you, James. Next slide, please. So, Commissioners, it is with pleasure that I introduce our new Wetlands Director, Mike Lynch. He's sitting in the audience. Stand up, Mike. Yay. Mike started on Monday. He's had a career in the public sector since 2008 when he started working for the DEP Southwest District Office. He served as the Director of Water Resource Management for the DEP in Tallahassee before coming to the EPC. He has a bachelor's degree from the University of South Florida and University of Florida with majors in geology and geography and a minor in environmental science. In addition to his many other professional achievements, Mike served as a Florida Sterling Council examiner and team leader and was selected as the 2016 Florida Sterling Rookie of the Year. And if you're not familiar with that is the Six Sigma, that's the Malcolm Baldrige, that's the Sterling process. We went through that, and it's all about finding efficiencies and streamlining and doing more with less. We are a Sterling recipient as well, so it's great to have him on board so we can just get that whole process moving through the agency again. Mike has represented DEP on various legislative activities with the Senate Committee on Environmental and Natural Resources. Again, he just came from Tallahassee. The House Water Quality, Supply and Treatment Subcommittee, and the House Infrastructure Strategic Committee. And I can just tell you, we are very fortunate to have Mike on board, and we welcome him to our EPC team.
Welcome, sir.
Thanks, Mike. Next slide, please. EPC celebrated National Arbor Day at a tree planting ceremony at Mary Bryant Elementary School in Tampa. Thank you, Commissioner Wustel, for your participation and providing an informative history of the origins of Arbor Day for students and staff. I have to tell you, he had all of these statistics. He had done his research, and I've been to Arbor Day now. This is my 7th year. And I learned new information from
Point of order, did he just do one dig for the picture, or did he actually help out with that?
I think we all just did 1 or 2 digs for the picture. Actually, staff had planted the tree the day before. The school selected, and we do let the schools select, a Southern Magnolia for the planting ceremony. I would like to give a shout out to the Florida Forestry Service for awarding the grant money for this project, and to Pine Lake Nursery for providing the beautiful tree and 500 sand pine seedlings, which were shared with students. Thanks again, Commissioner. Next slide. Earth Day provides EPC with a variety of outreach opportunities for our volunteers. EcoFest is a family-friendly, popular community event that is held annually and attracts a large crowd of adults and children alike. And we're famous for those color, we allow people to color turtles. They love it. Next slide, please. EPC teamed up with the Hillsborough County Planning Commission at McKay Bay for the 3rd annual Great Port Cleanup, sponsored by the Port Authority, Keep Tampa Bay Beautiful, and the Propeller Club. This annual event attracts volunteers from around the community who help to remove trash and marine debris from several sites in and around Port Tampa. This year, 851 volunteers collected nearly 80,000 pounds of trash, which is more than double last year's total. Our volunteers are proud to do our part to help eliminate harmful waste from entering our waters in Tampa Bay. I remember last year, Commissioner Cohen was out there, and I tell you, Commissioner, mosquitoes don't like me, so I didn't put on any of the bug spray, but after I was in those mangroves for about 10 minutes, there were about 4 of us running back for the bug spray, but we got a lot of trash out of those mangroves. Next slide, please. The EPC's green team spearheaded our own agency's effort to clean a stretch of adopted roadway along Falkenberg Road and Broadway Avenue in honor of Earth Day. We had a total of 27 volunteers participate in this well-done cleanup effort, resulting in the collection of an impressive 70 bags of trash and various large items such as tires, and they did all that in 1 hour. Next slide, please. Commissioner Cameron Cepeda, our water staff, greatly appreciated the opportunity to take you and your aide, Isabella Pike, out for sampling runs in Tampa Bay and to show you our water monitoring staff in action. And it was a nice day, and just as this happened, just with Commissioner Cameron Cepeda, the other boat was out sampling, and so that's why they were able to take a picture of her in the boat on the water. Next slide, please. I had the opportunity to attend the town hall meeting held by Commissioner Myers in Riverview. Informative town hall events such as this are an excellent venue for me to meet residents in their communities where they live and share environmental services that EPC provides. And we all get on our tables, whether it's code enforcement or myself or fire or sheriff, and people come and they ask questions, and we take their information and get back with them. It's very helpful. Next slide, please. EPC attorneys Andy Zadro and Beth Lee participated and spoke at the 5th Annual Hillsborough County Bar Association Environmental and Land Use Law Conference. This happens annually, and it's a big event. Next slide, please. Thanks, Andy and Beth. EPC's General Counsel Rick Marotti wrote an article that was featured in an issue of Hillsborough County's Bar Association Lawyers magazine. In it, he shares perspective of what it is like to work as an attorney at EPC and why he is proud to serve the citizens of Hillsborough County. I was going to have a printed copy. I didn't. I'll send you an electronic copy so you can read it. It's a very nice article. Next slide, please. Good job, Rick. EPC hosted the 22nd Annual Clean Air Fair on May 4th at Poe Plaza in downtown Tampa, and the theme this year was Invest Your Energy in a Brighter Future. There were 60 exhibitors, several alternative fuel vehicles on display, and hundreds of visitors during the lunchtime event. And I'd like to thank all the commissioners and aides who were able to attend. I know there were some commissioners who were sick that couldn't, but it was well attended. And I want to thank HTV. They're putting out a video that should be done next week that will be on HTV so that everybody can, see what the Clean Air Fair is all about. So thank you. Next slide, please. At that air event, retired EPC alumnus Ron Nichols and his talented band provided live music for the fair, and we are so happy for his continued support because the music is a big deal there. People love it. Additionally, we gave away free tree saplings in honor of Arbor Day, and it was so fun to watch. Everybody around downtown Tampa had a plant, was holding a tree and walking around downtown Tampa. It was great. These plants were also purchased through the grant from the Florida Forestry Service and were provided by Pine Lake Nursery. Again, the plant giveaways are very popular with our visitors, and this year was no exception. Next slide, please. We also celebrated the 22nd EPC Environmental Photo Contest offered to local middle and high school students. Pictured here are the first, second, and third place winners. It's always a difficult decision when there are so many outstanding photos. This year, we considered over 50 photos. Winners receive a certificate and a monetary award, $150 for first, $100 for second, and $75 for third. The first place winner's art department was from Blake High School. The school will receive an extra $150 for their art program. Next slide, please. There were also 7 photos selected for honorable mention, and these students will also receive a certificate. Next slide, please. Solar United Neighbors, EPC, and other partners were excited to launch the 6th solar co-op for Hillsborough County during our Clean Air Fair. U.S. Representative Kathy Castor and Commissioner Kemp both spoke on the benefits of solar power and joining the co-op. The first in-person Solar 101 information session for Hillsborough County will be held on June 7th in Ruskin at 6:30 p.m. Anyone interested in registering to join the co-op or the info session and learning more about going solar can visit the website at www.solarunitedneighbors.org. Membership is free and there is no obligation to purchase. I was on the second solar co-op, and many of our employees have solar on their house and have gone through the subsequent co-ops as well. Next slide, please. I wish to thank our sustainability staff, Michelle Jenkins and Cody Winter, for volunteering for several sustainability-focused outreach events over the last few months. These include the Tampa International Airport's first ever Earth Day special exhibition featuring community partners and their sustainability efforts, and a climate career fair that was held in conjunction with the 2023 Climate Teach-In event hosted by Judy Genschaft's Honors College. The fair provided students with valuable insight into career opportunities that positively impact the environment and people's quality of life. Next slide, please. They also collaborated with our air monitoring manager, Jason Waters, to give an air quality presentation on April 12th to the South Tampa Garden Club. Next slide, please. Commissioners, May is American Wetlands Month, and EPC is inviting you and the public to join us for a personal staff-guided tour of the wetlands at Lettuce Lake Park on, I think it's this Saturday, May 20th at 9 a.m. And before I conclude the meeting, I did just want to say the air monitoring is provided. We had a great ozone presentation, but that is a delegated program from EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, and that comes with monies. And so we are delegated from the federal government to protect our air in this county. And so that's a good thing for us, and that it also comes with funding. So, and again, Jason, great presentation, very informative. Next slide, please. Our next EPC meeting will be held on June 15th at 2 p.m. Next year, we'll get back on the schedule of hopefully the third Thursday at 9 a.m. But we've already scheduled these meetings through the year, and the next one will be June 15th at 2 p.m. And unless you have questions, that concludes my report.
Any questions? Yeah, as you can see, our attempts to not have 12-hour days is the example of when good intentions go awry. But is there any old business? Any new business? We're adjourned. Thank you.